Hi Upward coaches, this is your devotional help for week number 2. Your first game is over. I hope it went well, and you probably have a million things in your mind of how practice should go. But I want to encourage you to take some time and once again focus on that huddle in the middle of your practice. And this week the question is, what does God do? And that's a really interesting question. It's actually a very difficult question because if you're going to whittle it down to a 2-minute talk, it's almost impossible. A few weeks ago, my daughter came into my office when I had picked her up from preschool, and we were sitting there, and she was eating popcorn and chocolate as she usually does in my office, and she looked at me and she goes, "Daddy, what do you do in here?" And I thought, that's a really interesting question. She's always around me, but she really doesn't understand fully what I do. And I think sometimes we can be that way with God. We can look and say, I know a lot about what goes on at church, and I even know a lot about the world, but what does God really do? And today, the answer that Upward gives us is that He rejoices over us, but I want to back that up a little bit because God does so much more than that. God forgives, God accepts us, God comforts us, God stays with us. But if we're going to ask the question, what does God do? I think we need to back up the picture, make it a little bit of a bigger picture, because one of the primary things that God does is He watches over all of His creation. If you think of Genesis chapter 1, on the first day, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light and darkness. On the second day, God created the waters on the earth from the water in the atmosphere. On the third day, He created dry land, plants, and trees. On the fourth day, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the heavenly objects. On the fifth day, he birds and fish were His creation. And on the sixth day, there was land animals and even people themselves, the pinnacle of His creation. And God watches over all of His creation, making sure that everything stays in order. He doesn't just take a hands off and it goes by itself. God is intimately involved. And when we think of that, it helps us understand how big God truly is. But then we have to understand that He tells us in His Word that not only does He pay attention to the bigness of creation because He is a huge God, but He pays attention to each and every one of us. And that should be an amazing fact for us to really contemplate, is that we have a humongous God who pays attention to us. Psalm 139, I want you to hear some of the words. It says, "You search me and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You discern my going out and my lying down. You, God, are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely. You created my innermost being. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." God pays attention to us even though He has all of these things to keep track of. He pays attention to each one of us in very detailed ways. The second set of verses that I want you to hear is this. Isaiah 41 verses 10 and 12 says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says, 'Do not fear, I will help you.'" So what does God do? He pays attention to the bigness of creation. He pays attention to the smallness of us, and He pays close enough attention that He knows how we live on a daily basis. And when we make good choices, when we live in a way that the talents and abilities that He's created us with are being used to help others and to let others know about Him, then He rejoices. It gives Him great joy. And we have to understand that when these kids are talking about who God is and what He does, we can't just say, what does God do? He rejoices. We need to create the picture of how big God truly is, and then how amazing it is that He pays attention to us, and then the fact that when we make good choices and when we live in a way with our talents and abilities and the gifts that He's given us, when we live in a way to honor Him, it makes Him happy. And I think you'll find that kids are constantly trying to please adults and make us happy, and when they know that they can make God happy by making good choices, by living in a way that honors and pleases Him, I think that'll be a big deal this week. So please take the time to look at it, take the time to dig into it, and have a great week.